bright lights.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Brian Britton, the Director of Media Relations here with the Tigers. I want to thank everyone for coming out. We've got a pretty full room here. First, I'm going to just begin by introducing everyone that we have on the stage. Starting the furthest from me is Scott Boris, who is Prince's representative. The reason everyone is here, Prince Fielder, Mr. Illich, our owner, our President, CEO, and General Manager, David Dombrowski, and our manager, Jim Leland. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to David Dombrowski, who is going to begin with a few opening remarks.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you to everybody for being here. It's a very special day for the Detroit Tigers organization and our fans, everybody in the community, that we can introduce such a fine player to join our ball club, our community, the excitement surrounding it, one of the best hitters in the game of baseball today, an all-star, somebody that has roots from the city. And before I introduce him, I do want to make special note to thank, first of all, the person that makes this most possible is Mr. I. And without his support, we not only wouldn't have the organization, but we wouldn't be here today for everything that he did here. To Scott Boris, Prince's representative, what he did, a special tip of the cap to John Westoff, our Vice President of Baseball Legal Counsel, who gets involved in this and all these negotiations. We all work very closely together and to provide this very exciting time for the city. I have a chance to hear from other people up here throughout the time period and open to questions. But without further ado, I want to bring up the newest member of the Detroit Tigers organization for him to stand and for him to make the presentation of his new jersey, Prince Fielder. Prince. Jay, David, why don't can you guys come on up? You want to come on up here? Nope? Come on, man. You don't want to? All right.
Got to cover those locks. There you go. A tiger!
How's my hat looking? Good?
Pretty.
Janelle, maybe do you have a moment that you can come up? Draw, you want to give me Janelle? She's coming up here.
Oh, there she is.
On behalf of the Tigers.
A very, very important part of this team. We all know how important a wife is, especially in sports. So it gives me great pleasure.
Thank you.
There's my other son over there.
Here.
All right.
He doesn't like the limelight, huh?
No, not at all. Excited? Smile.
All right, great. Thank you. You want to stay up here?
Hey,
You can stay up here if you want. Come on up. You can stay up here.
this is awesome.
Go ahead, Mr. I. You want to say? Okay. I think Mr. I is going to say a couple words before we turn it over to Prince.
I'd just like to mention that we were talking about a few minutes ago in the cigar room there that I was mentioning to the people who I was with that at the old ballpark Sissel, after Tiger games, would come up to the box, and he'd bring me food, and I'd say, well, thanks a lot. And we sit down, and all he did was talk about Prince. And Prince is going to do this, and Prince is going to do that, and and I said to myself, just typical father, bragging about one of his kids. But I know Cecil well, and how often Prince was in the ballpark, he got very familiar with it at a very young age. And when he was around, I don't know, Prince was 14, we stopped putting him in the upper deck, or 15? 12. Sorry. Sorry, after he started putting it in the upper deck, I said, don't you come upstairs anymore. You don't have to tell me any more about it. So he was marked to be a Major League Baseball player.
Thanks, Mr. I. Appreciate it. And Prince, anything you want to say before?
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank my wife, my lovely wife, and she means the world to me, and she's kept me on track to get here today. So I just want to say thank you to her. Thank you. I want to say thank you to Mr. Illich and the Illich family. This is awesome. I don't really know what to say. I'm just excited, and this is kind of a dream come true. So I'm excited. I want to thank Scott. It's my man right here. I messed up his hair earlier. I said, when I was 18, whenever we get to this day, I'm going to mess his hair up. So it does get messed up. So, I'm just excited to be here. I can't wait to get it going.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Prince. Thank you, everyone. At this part, we're ready to do the question and answers. Rick is on my immediate right, and Eileen here is on my left with microphones. So please raise your hand and wait for them to come to you with the microphone. At that point, you'll be able to ask your question. Ryan?
Prince, Ryan Armani from Fox 2 in Detroit. Just when you put that Old English D on, what does that mean to you coming full circle? I mean, this is basically your home and where you grew up.
It's I don't know. It's awesome. I don't know what to say. It's just I just never thought this could happen, and it's happened now. So it's an awesome moment, and I'm glad I get to be here with my family and one of my sons up here. But it's, like I said, this is an awesome moment, and it's a real special day.
Lynn?
Mike, can you tell us, please, how this amazing and rather startling deal all came about?
Mike Illich?
Please.
Well, it came about when Martinez got injured, and we sat down, Dave and I and some of the other key people in the organization, about how we're going to handle this. And I got a little dizzy because this person would move in here and this person would move there. And we got Rayburn here. We got to fill in for this one, that one. And I got thinking, I says, they're all going to have pressure on them to be able to match that 320 batting average, 100 RBIs, and they're going to have to feel pressure filling that slot. I mean, I don't want to run into that. I was telling Dave that I feel a lot better if we could just totally solve it. And then when he gets back, I think we'll have a very, very explosive team. So that's really how it got going. And then I decided to, always wanted Prince, because we just missed him by one in the draft. We had Milwaukee picked him just before us. I had talked to Dave about it, and we were ready for it. but it didn't happen. So it's always been on my mind over the years. Of course, I followed him very closely, and I saw what he did in Milwaukee was unbelievable. And so I said, I went to Dave and I said, I think we should go after Prince, and all right, let's make an effort and see if we can get him. And then after that, it's a long story.
I think Wojo had the next question.
Just to follow up to that, Mike, did anybody tell you you're crazy to commit $214 million, or did you have any pause at all about the commitment required to get Prince Fielder?
Well, I've made a few moves in sports. I've got a couple guys, it's a smaller sport, on 9-year deals. I got Franzen and, who's the other guy? Franzen? Zetterberg. And that's working out beautiful. And I know this is a lot more money. But I go by my instincts like everybody else does in business. And my instincts told me that this is going to work out fine. And I'm not going to worry about it. I know what Prince can do, and he'll give it 100%, but he gives 120. So he'll give 120%, and that's all you can ask of anybody. And I'm happy, and I feel very confident that things will work out. And if that's just how I feel about it. I feel good about it. I don't have any concerns. I'm not nervous about it. Well, I know there's probably something wrong with me there, but so anyhow, it's a green light.
Michael Rosenberg, the next question.
Yeah, for Prince, would you expect to play first base, and when you went into free agency, were you determined that you would be a first baseman and not a designated hitter?
I mean, yeah, that's what I was before I went into free agency. So, obviously that's what I had in mind. So, yeah.
Tom Gage has the next question.
This is for Scott. Scott, even last week during the caravan, the signals were that there wasn't going to be a fit for this. Who initiated it, and when did you realize that there was going to be a fit?
Well, we were talking with John Westhoff regarding Max Scherzer and working out his contract, and John, in his own way, he teases me a good bit sometimes in these processes. So he goes, would Prince Fielder be interested in a one-year deal? And I said, he would, for 9 years. And so he laughed, and we kind of went around, and then when Dave and John called me on the phone, the next day, I suddenly realized that John was not, they wanted to know more about the process, and that's really how it began. So,
I'll lean back behind you as a question.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Kyla from TV20. I have a question for Mr. Fielder and Mr. Illich and Mr. Dombrowski. How do you feel about the fans' reactions to the announcement? It wasn't even official yet before there was an outpour on social media and word of mouth that you were coming, and it was such a positive thing. How do you feel about that? How do you all feel about that?
Well, I'm excited. I'm glad that people are excited for me to come here. That means a lot, because when you come somewhere, especially with this kind of this kind of deal, you want to be welcomed, and you want people to welcome you in. So I'm just happy that people want me to be here, and I'm happy to be here.
Well, to me, it's extremely exciting. I mean, you can just tell. I mean, starting on Tuesday, when it leaked out, I guess, at the time when we really weren't anticipating it, I said, if we get our ticket sales in Lakeland for spring training, I get that ticket count on a daily basis. The next morning, I got the ticket count, and between 3:15 and the end of the day, we had sold 5 times as many tickets in that day than we sell on a daily basis. The same thing was true yesterday, and we haven't even officially announced it. Our ticket department was here till 8:30 on Tuesday night without a full-time announcement, answering the phones for season ticket orders. And so it's just tremendous. We have great fans. We have tremendous fans. They love the Tigers, and they love, in particular, a great club, too. And we have a good club, and then you add Prince to that. You can see why they're excited, and the enthusiasm's been fantastic. And really, it's driven by bringing a good player on board like that, but with what Mr. Rye has done, really topped it off.
Chris, why don't you stand up? You're checking emails and all that stuff. Let the people know how you got hit.
Yeah, well, my unofficial barometer is the number of texts and emails that I get from friends and fans and family and everyone in between. And we've always gotten a lot over the years when we signed folks like Pudge Rodriguez and Maglio Ordonez. But for Prince Fielder, it was off the charts. And that's when I knew the excitement in the community was very high, which is a lot of fun and exciting, really, for everybody in our community.
Next question we have is from Jeff Rieger.
Yeah, this one's for Jim. Jim, could you just kind of talk about the pleasure of penciling in a guy like Prince Fielder in your lineup card? And also the rumors are now that Miguel Cabrera would go to third. How confident are you that he can play that position?
Well, I'm not concerned at all. I think, Mr. Illich and Dave have given me a lot of nice pieces to this puzzle. It's my job, along with the coaches, to figure out how to put that puzzle all together. I don't think that's going to be an issue whatsoever. It's a pretty nice problem to have. I think Miguel Cabrera is going to play third base. I'll make that perfectly clear today. Obviously, we're going to start in spring training. I feel very comfortable with it. I think that we need to, right from the get-go, shoot straight from the hip. He's not going to have the agility defensively, most likely, that Brandon Inch had. But, you give up a little something, but you get a whole lot in return. We're going back to the old-fashioned baseball. We got big-time power on the corners. And not only with Prince and Miguel, but also potentially with Brennan Bosch and Delman Young. So putting the puzzle together is not going to be a problem. Whenever you have great players, it's a real nice problem to have. And everybody's already asked me all about the pressure. If you can't handle it by the time you're 67, you don't belong in the business.
You might also talk about how you did talk to Miguel beforehand, how he...
Yeah, my process is a little bit different, obviously, than Mr. Illich's and Dave. But I do have to talk to the players. I did talk to Miguel. He's 100% on board. He feels real good about it. He's going to shed a little bit of weight. I hope not too much. I think a couple years ago he got a little too thin. So he's going to take care of that. I also have spoken to Brandon Inge, who I basically apologized to that this got out on the airwaves, obviously prior to us wanting it to. And I'm sorry he had to hear it other than from the horse's mouth, but at that particular time, I was not at any liberty to discuss this whatsoever. So I have talked with Brandon. He's not the happiest camper. He certainly understands. And we try to deal with these issues as we're supposed to be. That's part of our responsibility.
The next question there in the back behind Eileen.
Colin Windecker from WKZO Radio. Prince, just talk a little bit about what it's going to be like having a player such as Miguel Cabrera batting either before or after you in the lineup.
It's going to be awesome. I think, but my years in Milwaukee, I also had Ryan Braun there as well. So I think it's going to be awesome to have another another MVP type player to play with, as well as the MVP and Cy Young. So.
Next question over here in the back.
Welcome from ABC 12 in Flint. Hey, Prince, this question's for you. There was a lot of rumors that maybe you wouldn't want to come back here because of the issues with your father. Was there any of that at all, or what? Does 214 take care of that?
Well, no, money doesn't take care of that. But as far as coming here, I'm just excited to be here. I'm just looking forward to coming back where I grew up at. It's just going to be like they've already said, the fans are really excited. So I'm just glad that they remembered me. So I get to come back and play in front of the fans I kind of grew up with, or grew up in front of, actually. So it's cool.
Next question is Denny Cap.
Prince Denny Cap with WDFN here in Detroit. When you look outside that window and you see the cavernous Comerica Park, I know your averages here weren't super great, but does a player like you have to approach this field any differently, or do you adjust your swing at all differently to try to hit more gaps here as opposed to trying to launch into areas where they might not go out as they did in other parks?
Well, I mean, I'm not that good anyway to pick where I want to launch at, but I mean, I'm glad you think that. But no, I'm just gonna, you guys know me. I swing, I swing pretty hard. I mean, I'm trying to just hit line drives, and I think, I think with my power, I don't have to try to do anything different. Just try to make solid contact.
Next question is from Ryan.
Ryan Armani, Fox 2, here in the back. I guess any of you can answer this question. When you look outside from our vantage point, it looks like the sense of urgency to win is now. Can you speak to how important winning and winning now is to this organization?
Well, I'll speak because that falls into my responsibility along with others, but we're trying to win right now. We've got a club. We tried to win last year. We are close. I think we've reached the point now on a yearly basis we feel that way. When you look at the core of our group of players, there's a lot of guys that are on that field right now that are quality players. I mean, we talk about Prince, of course, who adds to that with Miguel, Justin Verlander, the MVP. We feel like we have a solid staff, a good everyday lineup, and so we're trying to do what we can to win. And all you can do is take care of your business on a daily basis, and Jim is very good at that with our players. But our ultimate goal is to win a world championship. We're not at a point where we're building. You're always aware of the future. So I don't mean to downplay the future because we have some good young players coming too that are going to be contributors to the organization. But it's no secret we're trying to win a world championship.
Tom has the next question.
This is for Prince. You were 5 years old, 5 to 12 the first time around in Detroit. What are your fondest memories from that time?
Oh, well, of course, coming here, I'm pretty much every day with my dad and taking batting practice and just, getting thrown in trash cans by Tony Phillips and Pete Incaviglia and, like I said, Tony, giving me candy on the side because my dad said not to go in there. There's a lot of good memories, and hopefully I can give those to my two boys because I think those memories have actually helped me, especially in professional baseball, seeing how, all these guys who, I thought were just, superheroes, how much they were having fun playing, baseball. It was just having fun just like I was at 12. So it was a lot. It helped me a lot and just showed me what I really wanted to do as far as a job, nothing better. Well, I went to school here, so I've, definitely had friends at the time, but, as you get older, you lose contact. But, I can't really remember the city that much. I mean, I remember a lot, but once I get back here and start, once I get here and start getting around, I'm sure it'll all come back to me.
Lynn was the next question.
For Prince, this is important. I know you have great respect for Miguel Cabrera. And Prince, he is being dislocated from a position where he was very comfortable and was playing very, very well.
Mm-hmm.
The Tigers are resolute about him being able to make this transition to third base.
Mm-hmm.
Based upon some history and the fact that it's been a lot of years since he played there regularly, if this doesn't work out, which is a very real possibility, would you be amenable at all to sharing time as a first baseman in DH?
Well, I mean, I'm a team guy. Whatever that time comes, if we have to make that decision, I'm sure, we'll talk about it and see what happens. But as of right now, I think I'm confident in Miguel doing a good job because of the fact that that's where he started out, at third base. So, I'm just here to win and, have a good time.
Prince,
Yeah.
this is for you. Obviously, your numbers speak for themselves, all you've done on the baseball field. You've also been somewhat of a YouTube sensation with some of the, incidents you've had with teammates, other players, umpires, so forth. How do you describe your demeanor on the field? Passionate, aggressive, laid back? How would you describe yourself, and what can we expect to see from you?
Well, I mean, you probably see the same things you've seen as well as on the field. I think I'm aggressive just because I think that's how you have to be when you play any sport, rather. You know, you want to be on the attack, you know. So, yeah, just expect hard baseball and aggressiveness.
Next question is Marty in the back.
This is for Dave. Dave, you've addressed the corners excellently, for lack of a better word. What is your plan now for the DH position?
Well, I think that, if you don't mind, I'm going to turn it over to Jim, because making out the lineup really is, and we've talked about, but that's his responsibility, so I'll turn it over to him.
Well, we're going to have great versatility with it. I mean, you play a lot of things by ear. You know, everything that looks like you can etch it in stone today always doesn't work out that way. But during the course of the season, there are days when players have a little nagging injury where you'd like to give them a little blow, but you still want their bat in the lineup. So we're going to have tremendous flexibility with this roster. It's going to be a very fun roster to manage, and I don't think the DH is any problem. I could give you several different ways I could go today. I've written down many, many lineups already, and it's amazing because in every lineup that I've written down so far, Cabrera and Fielder are in that lineup.
Next question over here. Pat Batchelor from WDET. A question for either Dave or Jim Leland. A lot has been written about transitioning Miguel back over to third. If you look at his career numbers, they're comparable, fielding-wise, they're comparable to Ramirez or Beltre. Are people too worried about that, do you think? I mean, are they just over-concerned about it?
I think so. I think that what you have to understand is that this is what I believe I have in Miguel Cabrera at third base. I think I have a tremendous set of hands that could actually play anywhere in the infield and catch a ground ball. And I think I have one of the best arms in baseball. So what your concern is because of the size of Miguel, is his athleticism going to be as good coming in on bunts? Is his range going to be maybe as good as some of the better third basemen? That's probably not going to happen. But I think when he gets himself at the weight that he wants to be at, I think his first step is very quick. I think his hands are absolutely tremendous, and I know for a fact that his throwing arm is one of the best in baseball. It's kind of got hidden in the first base position, but it is a tremendous throwing arm.
Next question is from Terry.
Prince, Terry Moore, Metro Networks. Two-part question. Talk about the big adjustments that you have to make going from one league to the other, and also talk about the pressure of the contract that you've got, just trying to live up to that contract.
As far as the league, it's going to be an adjustment just because I haven't seen, all the pitchers in this league. But as far as, but it's still baseball in the end, so I think, I'm confident about that part. It's all baseball. Because in the minor leagues, you didn't see anybody either, so I think it will be all right in that part. And as for the contract, as far as living up to it, I'm just, I think like Mr. Illich said, I'm just going out there and playing hard. I think that's the main reason why I think, the Brewers wanted me here, and the Tigers wanted me here, and I wanted to be here. It's just the fact that, they see I play hard, and that's what I like about the team. They play hard as well. I think that's all I really can do, because as far as trying to live up to it with a certain, statistic goal or whatever, that's just, it's out of my control. So I think if I show up every day ready to play, that's all I can do and play hard, and I'll be happy with that.
Next question, Jeff.
Yeah, this one's for Dave.
I just wanted to mention that my wife Marion has never been at a Tiger press conference, and I said, "Well, come on, you got to come down." She goes, "Oh, well, I don't know. I don't know what they're like." I said, "Well, you've been at Red Wing conference, and she goes, "Yeah." So I want you, and plus, I just felt that she had to be here. And I want you to stand up and look around and see the size of this. Stand up, take a look. You made it. She said I'm brown nosing because I spent all that money.
Jeff?
Yeah, this one's for Dave. Just curious, are you satisfied with this club now after the Fielder signing going into spring training, or could you maybe see a couple other trades, free agent pickups, that the Tigers are rumored to kind of be in for?
I think we're pretty well set going in. You always can be better, and that's my job. So you're always looking to get better, but you're trying to do that with the parameters that we currently have. I think that we've talked about adding a couple of veteran or non-rostered pitchers to come in to compete for the 5th spot. Not guys on guaranteed contracts, nothing along those lines, but somebody that if our youngsters maybe aren't quite ready, which we think that they are, but just in case they don't make it, we can lean on that. And we're still looking at that. Al Avila been working on it hard the last couple of days with everything we've talked about. He keeps working on it and coming into me almost every 10, 15 minutes with an update with conversations that he's had. So we're still working on it. Will it happen? I'm not sure. But that is something that we're looking to do. I think positional player-wise, we're pretty well set.
Lynn has our next question.
This is a question for both Scott and Dave, and it's dead serious. Prince is husky, and as men get into their 30s, oftentimes the weight will pick up. Is there a weight clause, frankly, or something equivalent to it in this contract? And Scott, if I can also ask you, we're missing something on chronology here. When did you have your first conversation with Mike Ilitch? Those two questions, please.
Well, first of all, there was never anything about Prince and his conditioning or anything that was even questioned by anyone in this club at any time. I think that's a part of the fact that the Tigers have done their due diligence in understanding who Prince Fielder is. It sounds like Mr. Ilitch was doing due diligence when Prince was 5. But as far as the involvement of how the Tiger organization works, Dave and John always initially contact me and let them know they have an interest in the player. The Ilitch family and Mike's involvement is something that, way back when we have a history where, Mike really let me know in 2003 what he wanted to do for his community, what he wanted to do for his family, and what he wanted to do for his team. And I think once I understood the passion and once I understood what it was, we started with Pudge, then Maglio, and Kenny Rogers, and 3 years later we had a team from 119 losses in a World Series. And that type of success and that type of commitment is something that travels in the player community. So when players talk about the Detroit Tigers, you're not talking about something that is anything other than a family business and a family who has a goal that is a baseball goal, certainly, but it's also a community goal. And in doing all that and driving that forward, I think the aspect of it is that when you can tell players when they're young that you can look at the Detroit Tigers as a candidate for you when you're a free agent. And players look at that and they look at Detroit differently.
Follow-up.
When, though, because you were dealing with the Rangers and with the Nationals, and everybody in baseball knew that, when did you have your first substantive conversation about Prince with Mike Ilitch?
I don't know the exact date, and I was dealing with a variety of teams. I've been in free agency a while, and the teams just kept calling for Prince. There were a number of teams that came in this process, and I think the reason for the process, which I can now say because it was a personal matter, was that Prince and Chanel redid their vows in early January, and we really couldn't begin this free agency until the 11th. And so we had a number of teams waiting and a number of teams in order to do this, and we had to filter through the process, and Prince had to meet everyone involved and such. But I would imagine that, once John and I had a conversation and Dave and I had a conversation, then Mr. I and I began some discussions about his intent and what he wanted for Prince and what he felt this team was going to do. And remember that his goal ultimately was to win a world championship, and certainly Prince is here because involved in this process, when you look at this lineup and you look at the opportunities to play with I mean, Miguel Cabrera, I don't think many people really know it, but those of us who study the metrics and statistics of this game, this is one of the greatest players in the game. And you couple that with Prince Fielder in the middle of the lineup, and you have something not only of quality and unique today, but you have something of historic quality as far as what production you can receive. And certainly when I gave that information to Prince, and he looked at this, and he evaluated it, and he said, when I come here, I've got one of the greatest opportunities in my free agency to win a world championship. And that was really a dynamic that I think had a lot to do with Mr. I's discussions and the fact that we certainly told the Tigers that, you know, how Prince felt about them.
Noah had the next question.
This question is for Jim. Do you have any immediate preference or sense on what order Cabrera or Prince could hit in the lineup, or is that the type of thing that could stay flexible through the season, maybe, depending on matchups and so forth?
Well, I mean, the plan right now is to, you know, have Jackson lead off, Bosch hit second, Cabrera third, Prince fourth, Delman fifth, Avila sixth, Peralta seventh, Dirks, Thomas, Kelly eighth, and Rayburn ninth. So that's pretty hard to mess that one up.
Wojo? Mike, just a little bit of a follow-up to Lynn's question about talking with Scott Boras. How urgently or desperately did you want this? Was this a case where you went to Dave Dombrowski and said, deliver me Prince Fielder no matter what? Or how badly were you pushing and pressing for this?
It wasn't a case of pressing. It was a case of we're going to go out and do it. I mean, we give our best effort to get him. And as far as Scott Boras, I want to tell you something. He knows his team better than I do. I mean, he knows every player, what their averages are, where they're from, what they did during their career, who leads the team, what areas that are necessary, and he just knows everything about the Detroit Tigers. I was flabbergasted. I mean, you know, utility players, everybody. We went through a big discussion, or he went through a big discussion, and pointed out to me that some of the things that he thought were necessary to win a World Series, and he explained to me why, and so on and so forth. There's great salesmanship involved with that, but the guy is an encyclopedia when it comes to knowing the teams and knowing the people that are associated with the organizations. So I got a lot of good information from him. I put the sales aside and I listened to the common sense approach that he has and the knowledge he has about the game. He's extremely knowledgeable.
Ryan?
Ryan Armani, Fox 2. Jim, this question is for you. You talked a while ago about you put 1 million lineups together, and you talked to Brandon Inge. In any of those lineups, did you have Brandon Inge catching, playing shortstop, second base, anywhere that he can be useful to this team?
I did not have him at those positions. I did have him on a potential DH day for somebody at third base. I did. The plan right now, I also want to add this, so we're not going to be talking about this later on. The plan is not to defense for Miguel at third base late in the game, as we speak today. We will monitor that, but as we speak today, I don't think that you defense for those star players very often. So that is the plan today. But I did have Inge in the lineup at times at third base. Now, what you mentioned is he does have versatility, so there could be a moment when, you know, we would go that direction. But the lineup that I had him in right now would be at third base, you know, depending on who's DHing that day or, you know, who's a little sore, who may need a day off. Sure. And he should still be a valuable part of this club.
Marty?
This question's for Jim. Jim, are you, with all the power you have, at all at least concerned a little bit about the lack of team speed that they have?
Well, if they hit them where they're supposed to hit them, they can trot. So I'm not really as concerned about that as everybody else. I've always, we did talk about speed, and we did want to address that a little bit, but as I've told everybody forever, I'd rather have a slow guy that can hit than a fast guy that can't. So, we're a doubles team. That's Dave's favorite hit in baseball, the doubles. And if you looked at us last year, we hit it in the gas and we hit it over the fence. That's what we do. We're not really a manufacturer type team. So we're going to, I think for any good manager, I think the key is you manage the players you have. Whether you work in an office or anywhere else, you're charging people, you manage the people you have. And you manage those people to get the best out of them. And the player's job is not to adjust to the manager's style. It's the manager's job to adjust to the player's style.
Let's just take two more questions. I got one over here to my right.
Just a fun one, Amy Lang from Fox 2. We've heard from a lot of handsome gentlemen up here today, but there's a real cute little guy who's up there yawning and wiping his eyes, and I'm wondering, Prince, if you wouldn't mind, if your son, if he's feeling up to it, introduce himself to us and tell him how he feels about his New Jersey.
You want to do that? You just want to say your name?
Sure.
Go ahead, man. You just start.
Do I just say Jaden?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they know your last name. Just tell them. Say hi, I'm Jaden.
Hi, I'm Jaden.
Hey. You excited?
I guess.
How do you like that shirt you're wearing there?
Pretty good.
Thank you.
Perfect. You did good, man.
We have one more right behind Eileen.
Hi, this is Kyla again from TV 20. Mr. Dombrowski, how hard was it to give up that big salary cap pretty much that you had to give for Mr. Prince? And who were you looking at before you decided to sign with Prince Fielder?
Well, we don't have a salary cap in baseball like other sports. I mean, ours is more an imposed, what we decide we're going to do from a financial perspective. We always have those parameters, but also I'm in a position with, and I've worked with Mr. I now for a long time, that my arrangement with him is when we operate that if I think there are things that make sense for us, I run it by him. Financial, as ownership, he has the ability to make whatever decision he wants to make when it comes to financial aspects, and it's up to us then to try to make that work. We have a very good business operation. Dwayne McLean handles that. And I think it's important because when you ask what other guys, sort of the chronology, last week was kind of a crazy week. We were out on the caravan. Of course, it started off with Victor's news, unfortunate news. I let Mr. I know that on Tuesday. Just like the rest of us, that when that news hits you, you're somewhat get the wind knocked out of you. And then on Wednesday, when I was driving to Grand Rapids for the banquet that night, my phone rang. And it was David Aegis saying, Mr. I'd like to talk to you. Have a minute? And I said, sure. He said, well, what are we going to do now? I mean, in a very, what's your plans? I said, well, I'm gathering some names and getting them together. This just happened, talking to our scouts, had the free agent list, going to put this together. On Thursday, when the same call came through, when I was in Grand Rapids, I said, I put all these names together. There's some solid guys out there, Mr. I, but there's only one difference maker out there, and that's Prince Fielder. And he says, well, why don't we try to get him? So on Thursday, and again, I was driving, we had some conversations. John was talking to Scott. John had already kind of tossed that one-year deal out to Scott on Tuesday. And at that point, he called them back to see where they were. On Thursday it was. And that's really when the conversations more started at that point. It was apparent, and we were kind of joking at the time, but that we weren't going to sign Prince for 1 year. And that's why when I told people I didn't really see there was a fit at that point, because we didn't have an indication at that time that we were going to go long term. But Mr. I, after thinking about it, in fact, I can think, when I came back here on Friday from the caravan, I came up into my office. It was about 4:45, and John was in the office, and he's saying, oh, thank good, Dave's back right now. Come on in here. Good timing. Mr. I, we need to call Mr. I. He's on the phone. And we called him and really updated him on the situation. And he said, well, let's see if we can get something done here. And John had already talked to Scott and had made it our initial offer on that time. We didn't see a deal. It wasn't getting done at that point. But a lot then picked up starting the next day, and I was on the phone numerous times with Mr. I. But it was always a situation with talking back and forth that we needed to make sure that these were some of the things we needed to do if we were going to go forward. We needed to talk to Miguel. We reached the point that when I reached out to Jim on Sunday to call Miguel officially and talk to him because we were moving along. We weren't at a deal point at that time. Tried to make Mr. I aware of where we stood from all the attendance, where we thought we could go. But he, at that point, then wanted to make it happen. And we were glad to make it happen, but it's also our responsibility to make him aware of where we stand as an organization. But we're absolutely thrilled that it was able to work out along those lines. But when it comes to secondary plans, we didn't have any secondary plan that was close to Prince Fielder. There was one up here and everybody else. And there's some good, when I say that, there's some very good players, some guys that are quality names, some guys that may go to the Hall of Fame that are out there that are not signed. But they're in a position where they're not quite at that. I mean, he's entering the prime of his career. When you look at his numbers, he's 27 years old. He's in the prime of his career with guys like Miguel and Justin Verlander that 27, 28 years old. So there was nobody that was even close.
Well, thank you, everyone. That kind of concludes this portion of today's press conference. We appreciate everyone coming. And again, big welcome to Prince and to his family here in Detroit.